Shalom, everybody. Can you hear me? Shabbat Shalom. I'm taking it off so you can hear me. Is that okay? Yeah. I took off the microphone so you can't hear me, so that's not okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Shabbat Shalom. Who would have thought? We joke. There are a lot of memes that came out of this past year. One of them is, who would have thought that Friday the 13th was the last normal day we were ever going to have? Because that was what we were last year. It was exactly a year ago, Shabbat, that we were together. And in person, I should say. Can you hear me? Max, Mike? Okay, no, my fault. That was on me. I forgot to turn on my power. Max, turn it down a little bit. We're getting some feedback. Thank you. So that's one of the things that I'm going to tell you. One of the things I learned in this past year is that if you pre-record the service, nobody ever has to see your mistakes because we do a do-over. We have a whole bunch of blooper reels that we wanted to show you one day of all the things that went wrong. It is fun. That's what keeps us going sometimes when we're stressed about. For example, today, I had no power at my house. There was partial power here, and then when we set up the computer to start streaming, the camera wouldn't connect to the computer because the operating system obviously upgraded after, and it's not after a year. You've seen us working in here before, so we couldn't understand why it wasn't working. And it took a lot of effort and a lot of phone calls, and I drove to Best Buy and got this dongle, which we never used, so upgraded. But those are the kinds of things that you go through trying to be here and in person, and I'm very grateful to be here and in person. So we, as you know, are here after a year. Some of the things that we need to do today, we did not get to do birthday blessings last week for the month because we were with the Gudeth Achim. So everybody who has birthdays or anniversaries in March are being celebrated today, and I had vested interest in wanting to give us a day because my birthday's in March. So I like being celebrated. We're not going to have the chuppah up today, but we're working on other ways. So if I forget, let me know. The other thing that happens this month that's pretty cool is it's the beginning of the month. The beginning of the month of Nisan, and I usually tell the joke, formerly known as Datsun, thank you, but it wasn't. It's also known not as Nisan, but in the Torah it's mentioned many times. It's mentioned as the month of the spring, the springtime month. And God mentions this month a lot because it's the month when Passover occurs, and it's the month when we were freed from Egypt. So I'm going to talk about that a lot, I think, today. So I think we covered that. Birthdays, new month. The new month of Nisan begins on Sunday. There is a quiz for that in a little while, if I remember to put it in. And other than that, if you had a week that was a little bit stressful, or if you're anticipating a week that's a little stressful, then Shabbat is a time when the stress gets to leave. You're not supposed to think about it. Your worries, your to-do lists are all out the door. We don't worry about it. So we take a deep breath, and we let it out. And we're so, so grateful to take deep breaths. We try again. And we let it out. Can we smell? Can we taste? Can we have wonderful deep breaths? We try, right? So we are going to begin our service on page 82. And our tradition is, please rise for this. These lights are only flickering flames. All week, the eternal light was a flickering flame, by the way. We had to get this gigamungo ladder up to try to change the bulb up there. Who knew? But these lights are only flickering flames. Yet flames illumine our uncertain steps. Flames remind us of Sabbaths long past and of their beauty that delighted our hearts. May they inspire us to work for the great Sabbath of peace. And I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to do this one in Hebrew. I'm going to sing it. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו להדליק נר של Shabbat. I want you to look at somebody who came in here with you and say Shabbat Shalom to them. I want you to look at someone who didn't come in and wave at them and say Shabbat Shalom to them. And you may be seated. Do you want a prayer book? We're going to continue on the bottom of page 83. We're going to do a Kiddush and a Motzi later during the Oneg Shabbat. That's when we've been doing it lately. And we're going to try that again this week. There are days when we seek material things and measure failure by what we do not own.
On Shabbat, we wish not to acquire, but to share.
There are days when we exploit nature with reckless greed.
On Shabbat, we stand and wonder before the mystery of creation.
There are days when we think only of ourselves.
On Shabbat, we open our hearts to the needs of others.
Therefore, we welcome Shabbat, day of rest, day of joy, day of peace, and we welcome the angels that accompany us on Shabbat. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bochen Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchuni L'Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The synagogue is the sanctuary of Israel. Born of our longing for the living God, it has been to Israel throughout our wanderings a visible token of the presence of God in our people's midst. Its beauty is the beauty of holiness. Steadfast it has stood as the champion of justice, mercy, and peace. Its truths are true for all people. Its love is a love for all people. Its God is the God of all people. As it has been said, my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. Let all the family of Israel, all who hunger for righteousness, all who seek the eternal, find God here, and here find life. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה, ובזמן קריב, וימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמך דקודשה בריחו, לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא, ויאמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. Oh God, how can we know you? Where can we find you? You are as close to us as breathing, yet you are farther than the farthermost star. You are as mysterious as the vast solitudes of night, yet as familiar to us as the light of the sun. To Moses you said, "You cannot see my face, but I will make all my goodness pass before you." Even so does your goodness pass before us in the realm of nature and in the joys and sorrows of life. When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the last full measure of selfless devotion we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives and we can begin to change the world. And then you live within our hearts, and we, through righteousness, behold your presence.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
You may be seated unless you're celebrating a bar mitzvah this year, this month, this week. We're narrowing it down. This guy. You can take off your mask to lead if you want.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך
ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem, Amen. Would you lead us in the English too, please? You shall love, at the bottom page, sorry.
You shall love your eternal God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your being.
Set these words which I command you this day upon your heart.
Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way. When you lie down and when you rise up, bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be symbols before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Be
Full of all my mitzvot and do them.
So shall you consecrate yourself to your God. I am your eternal God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God. I am your eternal God.
Pretty cool. He's got this. Got this. I, the Eternal One, have called you to righteousness and taken you by the hand and kept you. I have made you a covenant people, a light to the nations.
We are Israel, witness to the covenant between God and God's children.
This is the covenant I make with Israel. I will place my Torah in your midst and write it upon your hearts. I will be your God, and you shall be my people.
We are Israel. Our Torah forbids the worship of race or nation, possessions or power.
You who worship gods that cannot save you, hear the words of the Eternal One. I am God, there is none else.
We are Israel. Our prophets proclaimed an exalted vision for the world.
Hate evil and love what is good. Let justice well up as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream.
We are Israel, schooled in the suffering of the oppressed.
You shall not oppress your neighbors nor rob them. You shall not stand idle while your neighbor bleeds.
We are Israel, taught to beat swords into plowshares, commanded to pursue peace.
Violence shall no longer be heard in your land, desolation and destruction within your borders. All your children will be taught of your God, and great shall be the peace of your children.
We are Israel, O God, when we are witnesses to your love and messengers of your truth.
You are my witnesses, says the Eternal One, and my servant whom I have chosen. Know me, therefore, and put your trust in me.
We are Israel, O God, when we proclaim you God our Redeemer,
As did our ancestors on the shores of the Red Sea.
Ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neda b'kodesh, norati hilot osef ele, norati hilot osef ele. Ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la.
That sounds good in here. I like that. That sounded very good. And I'm not going to say who, but someone noticed that you're wearing a different shirt than you've been wearing all year long.
I have more than one.
That's right, you have more than one shirt, and it's one of the joyous things that happens when you get to be in person. Although you may only see me like this forever, you may not get to see other versions of me, but my hair is different than the last time you saw me in person. I don't know what it looks like. My hair and I have a deal that I try to keep it clean and it tries not to embarrass me, and I try not to look at it very often, so this business of being on Zoom all year meant I had to look at it all the time. That wasn't fun. There were a lot of things that changed because of that. V'ne'emar, and it has been said, the Eternal One delivered Jacob and redeemed us from the hand of one stronger than ourselves. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. We praise you, O God, Redeemer of Israel. And I've said this before, this prayer is one that we say at night, because sometimes at night, when it's darker, we're not so sure of ourselves and we get a little bit more concerned. I think that, for me at least, all of these prayers have taken on new meanings when you're in the middle of a pandemic. So I hope you appreciate this anew every time you hear it. May we lie down this night in peace and rise up to life renewed. O God, spread over us your shelter of peace, of quiet and calm, and bless us with rest. And let a time come when morning will bring no word of war or famine or anguish or pandemic, a time of happiness, of contentment and rest. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukkot shalom, praise you Adonai, because you spread out over us a sukkah of shalom, a peace, aleinu, on us, al kol amo Yisrael, on all of the people Israel, v'al Yerushalayim, v'al kol ha'olam, and on all the world. We give thanks for the night and its rest and the promise of peace for all the world. And that's supposed to be my cue. See, this is one of those things that crash. While I'm getting this ready, let me remind you that some people are used to seeing all the words on screen. For those of you who are watching, if you still think you need the words on screen, let us know. We have the technology. It's a little bit complicated, but we weren't set up for that for today. V'shameru v'nei Yisrael ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam oti le'olam oti le'olam v'shameru v'nei Yisrael ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית העולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם. Can't. For many, many years, when I sang that song, I would look over to the keyboard, and I sing that song, I go into autopilot, I forget where I am. I don't always look at the words, I don't always pay attention, and I would turn over here, and Virginia would be there, and she would give me a sign of like show me what the next word was going to be for the next verse. And Adam was doing that too, except it was a whole different sign. I don't know what it was like. What key, like, what are we doing? And like afterwards, we'd have to explain it. But Virginia passed away just a few weeks ago, and so even when she was not here, and even though I weren't here, I'd sing that song. I think about her always reminding me where I was, and I'm sorry, that was hard. We continue on page 93, and I ask you to please rise for the tefillah section of the service. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, ve'Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibur v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, V'koneh HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mevi Geula Livnei V'nehem, L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah. God of all generations, of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, of Sarah, Rebekah, Leah, and Rachel, be praised. Your wondrous creative power fills heaven and earth. God of life and death, be praised. Through us, send help to the falling, healing to the sick, freedom to the captive. Confirm your faithfulness to those who sleep in the dust. Awesome and holy God, be praised. With acts of love and truth, we hallow your name. As it is said, y'all be holy, for I, your eternal God, am holy. That's what it says in the Hebrew anyway. It says, y'all be holy, for I, your eternal God, am holy. God of times and seasons, be praised. Enable us through Sabbath rest to explore and learn and impart the meanings of your Torah. Make our hearts ready to serve you this day and all days. So we know this is true. God who answers prayer, be praised. May we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, in all homes, in all synagogues, you are our God. Source of life and its wonders, be praised. You are the miracle within all we behold. You are goodness. You are compassion. We give thanks to you forever. We read together under the Hebrew. God of peace, of justice, and of love, be praised. Inspire us to banish forever hatred, war, and bloodshed. Help us to establish forever one human family united in peace. God of peace, bless us with peace.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim l'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim l'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon l'chol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon l'chol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim l'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim l'olam. V'tov be'enecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'kol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim l'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim l'olam. Tasim l'olam. Tasim l'olam.
Until this point in the service, the words we've been saying are words that have been given to us. Now is the time when we can either read what's in the prayer book or be in this sacred space and say the words that are in our hearts and listen to the voice we hear. Take a moment of silent prayer. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. ואמרו, אמרו, Amen. We turn to page 162 and we begin the quiz part of our service. I warned you. יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, שתחדש עלינו את החודש הבא. Our God and God of our ancestors, may the new month bring us renewed good and blessing. May we have long life, peace, prosperity, and health, a life full of blessing, a life exalted by love of Torah and reverence for the divine, a life in which the longings of our hearts are fulfilled for good. Wondrous God, in ancient days you led our people from bondage to freedom. Redeem us now out of our exile from one another. Look around for a second. Look around. Redeem us now from exile from one another, making all of Israel one united people. Rosh Chodesh Nisan, yeh b'yom rishon. That's your part. The new month of Nisan will begin on Sunday. We say together, God of holiness, let the new month bring for us and for the whole house of Israel life and peace, happiness and joy, deliverance and comfort. And let us say, Amen. And we're going to bless the birthday people in a little while. First, our hearts and our prayers turn to those who are ill or recuperating as we turn to the inside back cover of our prayer books. And I invite you to call out names of people who are ill or recuperating or for whom you would like us to be saying prayers. I would also like to add, just for today, because it's our 1-year anniversary, a year of pandemic. For today, did you know anyone who had COVID who recuperated? I just want you to say thank you. You don't have to call out names for that. I just want you to say thank you. Because as you know, and we will soon talk about the numbers of people who died, because many people died in this year, but the number of people who recuperated is significantly larger than the number of people who died. There are still people suffering, and the thing that I appreciate so much is how much medicine advanced so quickly to try to make the suffering less as the time went on. So I say thank you for that. I am appreciative especially for everyone who we know here who have recuperated. So together we pray, O God, in our hearts we name those who are facing illness and pain. We join our prayers with the prayers of all who love them. Give them renewed comfort and courage. Strengthen in them the healing powers you have placed within us all. Guide the hands and hearts of those who are entrusted with their care. May the knowledge of your love and ours give added hope to them and to their dear ones. May they find even greater strength because our prayers are linked to theirs. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaCholim. We praise you, eternal God, the source of healing and health. Mi shebeirach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi shebeirach imotenu mekor habracha. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. And it has become our tradition to add another Mishaberach to our service. We've added a lot of people to this part of our Mishaberach. We say this on behalf of our military and police, our firefighters, the EMTs, the doctors, the nurses, the veterans, those who have been our frontline people, and I'm going to add those people who were there for me at my curbside service, those people who were filling the Instacarts and the supermarket needs, and all of the people who have been there for us all year so that we could be here today. Mishaberach avotenu ve'imotenu, may the one who blessed and protected our ancestors guard all those whom we've entrusted with the responsibility of defending our freedom, protecting us, or healing us in this country, in the land of Israel, and everywhere they've been called to serve. Give them courage to succeed and strength to persevere. May they return home safely, and let us say, Amen. And we say especially to our officer who's always protecting us, because I'm always glad when I see him. Every time, I'm not out here often, and when I'm here, he's often in the parking lot, just watching over us, even when we're not here. We appreciate you. So, did you remember what I said we call this month? Yeah, and you remember what I said we call this Shabbat? It's called Shabbat HaChodesh, which means the Sabbath of the month. Of all of the months of the year, this is called the month. And God mentions it a lot in the Torah. This month of spring, the month of Nisan. And I was going to talk about all kinds of other things today, but I think that what's really important to me right now is feeling what it feels like to be a year later. And what it felt like last year after that very first service that we had to be confined home. And how scary it was, and how much I appreciated many of you here, if not almost all of you here, somehow played a role in the services over the past year, and I appreciate you, whether many of you read parts for me. But I remember especially that very first service when I said, you know, it's scary. It's just really scary to be home, to be trapped, and I would love to do this. And I called board members, and I said, would you do me a favor? Would you please read a section of the service and first say something simple like, stay safe, stay home, Shabbat Shalom. And almost 100% of the people said, yes, I will do that. Some people said, I don't think I could do that, because they didn't know the technology more than that they weren't willing. And it was, especially in those first few months, a really wonderful blessing, because we got to see people in their homes, even though we couldn't go to their homes, and they got to come to us, even though they couldn't come to us. I had one person say, you know, I love those services because it's kind of like playing a slot machine. You never know who's going to come up next and what they're going to say. And there was something really exciting and wonderful about that. And we tried to make this miserable experience something wonderful. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that you've let me do that over the year. Oh, we have them. We have a bunch of when some people sent us bloopers, and I'm embarrassed to say, those of you who've done this, and I'm saying almost everybody in this room did them, you know how many bloopers there were before you would send me the good copy, right? And so it was true. It took a lot of effort to turn those things into services. And we have people who are watching now, people who've watched all over the country, all over the world, who appreciated that. We started something new about a week or two later, where we put the words on the screen, because very few people thought to be quarantined to hunker down with their prayer books. We are using the Gates of Prayer that are gray, by the way, for those of you. I don't have any words on the screen this week. So like I say, if you need things, if you're still home and you're still confined and you need more from us from these services, please let me know. And if you're here, thank you. So I appreciate what we've been able to do. One of the things, though, that I think about a lot, last year at this time, we're kind of living in real time in the Jewish life, where we are celebrating the preparation for freedom as we get ready for Passover. And last year it was a very bizarre freedom, because we weren't free. We were stuck in our houses. But we did feel something like what it was like to be in the wilderness, and it felt a lot like 40 years. And we never knew when the end was coming. Last week we talked about the golden calf, and you can imagine, you have a leader, and the leader was saving you from all of this horrible life, and then the leader disappears, and you don't know how long the leader's going away for. And that was horrible to them, and we did that wonderful golden calf thing. Yikes. I'm so glad we never did that here. I'm just so glad we didn't do that. But my point is, one of the things that I would like to try to do is, now that we are slowly but surely coming back into the world, leaving the wilderness and coming into the world again, I would like us not, if possible, I would like us to not go back to what it was. I would like us to go to a new wonderful. I would like us not to, I don't see how we can avoid it, because we just lived a year of trying to do the right things for ourselves. And I don't know about some of you, I don't always think about me first. And we had to think about me first this year. And we also lived a year of thinking about each other. How many times have you seen the wear the mask not for you but for everybody else thing? And so I love that we, and I know some of us are like this anyway, but I love that we are living in a world where we're trying to think about each other and think about ourselves and take care of each other. And so if we just lived 40 years in a wilderness, where do we go from here? What's our next step? Because we have a say in where we go from here. And that's what I appreciate the most, is that we have voices to say what we want. Kathy asked me the other day, what's my new goal now that things are changing? What are we going to do? What's our next 5-year plan? And I said, I want to hear what the congregation wants now. Because, you know, in the Reform movement, prayer, worship services aren't always the priority, but this year they became more of a priority. We did a lot more praying. We did a lot more wanting to be praying than we normally do. And so if that's a priority, tell me what you want services to be like. Or if it's social action, that it drove us crazy, that we love being at the food bank and we couldn't be at the food bank because they said they couldn't take the volunteers. Tell me what you want to do and we will make those things happen, because I want us to have a new reality where we are caring about each other. So last week I was very stressed about the golden calf. I made a new blog. I don't know if anybody was noticing that I've been writing blogs, and then I stopped writing for a really long time. It's not that I don't think of things, it's just that I'm only thinking of things in the shower, and by the time I put my clothes on, I can't remember what I wanted to say. That's the truth. But this time I remembered what I wanted to say, because it really got to me, that last week's lesson about Aaron and Moses. So the people leave, Moses goes up on this mountain for who knows how long. And they go to Aaron and they say, Aaron, we need to think something. I mean, the details about why and how, I'm not going to worry about right now. We could talk about that another time. The thing that impressed me is that Aaron was the kind of leader who listened. And he said, you need a calf? He tried to stall, but here's a calf. And Moses is the kind of guy who comes down and says, do this, do that. And I have been stressed this year a lot about what kind of a leader I was supposed to be. And I am proud to tell you that at the end of the year, because of last week's Torah portion, I want to be the kind of leader that listens and not just tells people what to do. I think that's more who I am, is trying to listen. And I hope that I listened. I tried. It was really hard that, I felt a little bit more like Solomon. There are a couple Solomon stories. One of them is about the baby, that they're fighting over who gets the live baby and who gets the dead baby. I was glad that wasn't any of the kinds of things I had to deal with, because I would never have been the kind of person who said, chop the live baby in half, even if it was a brilliant idea. I don't think I had that in me. So I want to listen. Keep talking to me. I'm trying. Meanwhile, now we want to listen to what our president has to say. So I'm going to bring this up for you. And I will come over here for now. Last year, John was our president. And I remember when we had that last service here where we had almost nobody here. And he's saying, well, we could do this, but we just won't have food. And then they said, not even 10 people. And he says, well, then we can't have services. I remember that. I remember where you were standing when that happened. And here we are again.
Shabbat Shalom. It's so good to be here. Thank you for joining us for our B'nai Zion Shabbat service. Mazel tov to everyone with birthdays or anniversaries this month. And let me break away from the script and say a special thank you to you, Rabbi, to you, Adam, to Max, for providing all the efforts that it took to give us the services we have had this last year. It has not been easy. You know, it's almost like many people have said, it takes a village for things to happen. We had our families involved, we as individuals were involved, and I'm so thankful that we're back here. Tonight after services, we will try to do a Zoom Owning Shabbat. We plan to begin at 7:30. Rabbi Jana will lead a fun Zoom Kiddush Shabbat for families at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Tomorrow at 9:45, Torah study and 11 a.m. services will be on Zoom. Tomorrow night, remember to set your clocks ahead an hour. There will not be religious school or Hebrew classes this week while the students are on spring break. Rabbi Jana's adult classes will resume after Passover. Rabbi Jana is on Red River Radio this Sunday at 1 for their About Faith program. Check their website or ours for Passover programs on Red River Radio as well. Next Friday, Reed Turner will lead the service and be called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah. The service will begin at 6 p.m. Passover begins Saturday evening, March 27th. Rabbi Jana plans to lead a Zoom Seder and also have materials available online to help you with your Passover plans. Albertsons has their Passover foods available for purchase already, and I think someone told me Kroger has some as well.
And I just found out today that Albertsons is about to put some of them on sale already.
Oh, wow. Donations were made to B'nai Zion Sisterhood Flower Fund in loving memory of Carol Y. Birchfield by Cliff Birchfield, and in loving memory of my stepmother by our family. Each week after the flowers are used for Shabbat services, the Sisterhood delivers them to someone special. Shabbat Shalom, stay safe, and I hope I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Now, if you have a birthday or an anniversary in March, find a spot down here. Come on. Is that it? Just me and you and anniversary, right? Birthdays, anniversaries. There was a meme, one of my see, there were a bunch of memes that came out of this year that made me happy. One of them was, this year didn't count, I'm not adding it to my candles on my cake or anything. It just didn't count. Last year, you may remember that the weekend before my birthday, we had Bishop Larry Brandon who came and spoke, and he had his gospel choir singing, and they said that they don't call it getting older, they call it leveling up. I don't mind leveling up, let me tell you, because I just earned a whole year. I got so many hunker down points this year that you can't begin to manage. So I want to point out that you get presents. You can take either the coffee mug or the travel mug on your way. But we say together, God of days and years, author of life. No, we don't say it together. I'm the only one with the words. I say it for you. I'm sorry. God of days and years. See, we don't have the words on the screen. Usually you could say it with me the past year. God of days and years, author of life, our times are in your hand. We thank you for the blessing of life and for all that enriches our lives. We gather today in special thankfulness to share in the happiness of our friends with birthdays and anniversaries. Be with us always as the joy of our lives. May we be blessed with health and happiness and with the strength to overcome sickness and sorrow. May we have the joy of coming together for many more years, united by mutual reverence and love. Then will our lives be filled with abundance of blessing. And this is where you get to help. You get to say, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheyanu, v'kiyamanu, v'higianu, lazman hazeh. Praise are you, God, because you gave us life. You let us stay alive, and you caused us to reach this very special moment. Thank you. Now, you get to stay up here. You don't have to. Do you want to help me open the ark? You want me to come on up, the two of you. This is our birthday honor. Everyone, please rise for the Aleinu when the ark is open, and we turn to page 148, I want to say. Yes! See, it's a year later. I still remember the page numbers. 148 when the ark is open. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tet gedula li'yotzer b'reshit, shelo asanu k'grei ha'ara צמאנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. We continue on page 150. The day will come when all shall turn with trust to you, O God. Hearkening to your voice, bearing witness to your truth, you may join me. We pray with all our hearts. Let violence be gone. Let the day come soon when evil shall give way to goodness, when war shall be forgotten, and all at last shall live in freedom. O source of life, may we, created in your image, embrace one another in friendship and in joy. Then shall we be one family, and then shall your sovereignty be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. The eternal God will reign forever and ever. On that day, O God, you shall be one, and your name shall be one. Bayom ha'hu, bayom ha'hu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo, u'shemo, u'shemo echad. When the ark is closed, you may be seated. Thank you. Mazel tov. May be seated. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth. Our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. So at this point in the service, we acknowledge that it's been a year of deaths too. If you know someone who has died this year of COVID, I'm not calling everybody's name. We've lost over 2.5 million people in this country. In the world, I mean, we've lost, according to our numbers, we lost over 530,000 Americans, almost 10,000 people in Shreveport, in Louisiana, with almost 700 in Caddo alone. We've lost 2 people in our military this year, not from COVID. We lost 68 police officers, 38 from COVID. We lost 28 firefighters, 13 from COVID. We've lost over 3,500 healthcare workers. But there are people from our congregation and our families who have died of COVID, and I would like, especially on this anniversary of 1 year's worth of COVID, and especially because we've had over, what did they say? I had all the numbers written down. We've had, in Shreveport alone, we've had over 1.25 million vaccines already. So there's some hope. But right now, I would like us to be focusing on remembering and acknowledging everyone who died. If you have people who you know who died of COVID, I would invite you to call their names out. And they can be famous people too. We lost a lot of people this year. As we remember them, let us meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. In nature's ebb and flow, your eternal law abides. As you are our support in the struggles of life, so also are you our hope in death. In your care, O God, are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Your power gives us strength. Your love comforts us. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts. Fill us with trust in you and turn us again to the tasks of life. And may the memory of our loved ones inspire us to continue their work for the coming of your sovereign rule. However brief may be our time on earth, O God, you endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. We now recall the loved ones whom death has recently taken from us. We are still observing Virginia Walker's Shloshim. And I made a promise that we would remember and honor the memory of Dr. Karl Bernofsky. And we remember the parents of our congregants who died this past year. We remember Tommy Crowder, Sophie Lipo, Robert Talbert, Joseph Paris, Artis Robison, and George Rothkopf. And as we remember those who died at this season in years past, we take them into our hearts with our own. Those for whom we're observing the Ortsites this past week include Julian S. Bernard, Carol Birchfield, Marion Burstein, Henry Lane Dreyfus, Samuel Dreyfus, Zelda Golder, Julius S. Kahn, Sadie Katz, Ray E. Levy, Nan Levy, Pauline Lipson, Samuel Loeb, Solomon L. Meyer, David Miller, Dora Maurerman, Peggy Owens, Benjamin Rambach, Hilda Roth, Bernice Kreisman Schulwolf, Bernard Siegel, Harry Shanhouse, Justine Wiseman, Henry Sauer Wiseman, Hannah Cohen Weiss, and Bernie Walenzik. In this moment of memory, our griefs and our sympathies are mingled. Loving God, we rise as together we praise your name. The Mourner's Cottage is found on page 154. The translation is on 155. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayei chon u'v'yomei chon, u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitrumam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to everyone who is bereaved. We say amen. Please be seated for a moment. I know that in the guidelines we got, we weren't even going to sing at all, but we're singing and we're enjoying singing, and we are going to sing. Did we pick a closing song?
We didn't, but I got it in Kelohino.
We can do an Ein Kelohenu. I think that's page 156, 159. Still got it. 159. There is none like our God. There's none like our God. 159. Yes?
I got it. Oh.
In that key, good.
Ein Kelohenu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkenu, Ein Kamoshienu, Mi Elohenu, Mi Chadonenu, Mi Kamalkenu, Mi
Let's give thanks.
Kamoshienu. Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu.
Blessed is
Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu.
You are it.
Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
Please rise for the closing prayer. We will motzi in half an hour when we get on with Zoom. I want you to help me bless everybody. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. May God bless you. May God protect you. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. May the light of God's face shine upon you. Feel gracious and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's face be lifted up to you, because God has things that God looks up to you about. May God grant you peace, health, and a Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. La 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 la.